Hello you, it's me. Today we're going to talk about A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, which is book 2 in the Wayfarers series. Before you watch this review, I highly suggest that you go and check out my review for the first book, which I will link down below. They are two separate stories set in the same universe, but there will be spoilers for the first book in this book, and there will be spoilers for this book in this review, as well as some spoilers for stuff that happens at the end of book 1. A bit, I guess. So this book, like book 1, is set thousands of years in the future after humans have been accepted into the Galactic Commons and control space alongside the Harmagians, the Andrisk, and the Alien Ones, and countless other species known altogether as sapients. The galaxy is slowly being opened up and colonized, and everybody save the Toremi from book 1 are generally pretty happy with this arrangement and live together fairly harmoniously in a mostly accepting society. The story follows two main characters, the first being Lovelace, known in this book as Sidra, who is an AI that left the ship, the Wayfarer, at the end of book 1, following the events that unfolded in that, after their punching a hole into Toremi-controlled space. She's transferred from the processing core of the ship into a synthetic, mimetic, human-shaped housing, the production, sale, and even possession of which is highly illegal, and tries to come to terms with her life from a centralised and humanoid perspective in the tech garage Warrens of Port Coriol. She's sheltered and helped by repair shop owner Pepper, who we see briefly in book 1. The other storyline in here we follow is the childhood of Pepper, as a bioengineered human slave who manages to escape from her salvage processing plant that she worked in. On a fringe planet, she spends years living in the junkyard wastes, guided by an AI named Owl, who teaches her and instructs her how to repair a ship to get off world. This book, going into it, feels so different than book 1. It's just laid out in a completely different way. The fact that it alternates between chapters set in the past, chapters set in the present storyline, switching points of view between Pepper and Sidra makes it really quick to read. It also uses a lot of contrast in chapter switching, ending one chapter on a note that's so wildly different than the start of the next chapter. It really kept me invested the whole way through in both storylines. Neither were boring. There were no parts that I was rushing through, as happens in many various POV books, cough cough, Game of Thrones. I really loved this book. This is actually a reread for me. I've read the first 3 in this series before. I forgot how much I loved it. Honestly, it's so much better, in my opinion, than book 1. But they're both good, but they're both good for completely different reasons. This is much more a character study. It feels a lot more personal. I was way more emotionally invested. I think since it's not hopping around so much, it doesn't have such a big cast, it does feel a lot more intimate than book 1. The book is set in a world that's very peaceful and without prejudice at first, but the main thing this book tackles is society's, and possibly the reader's, prejudice towards AI. And it's prejudice, like most hate, that is based almost entirely in fear. AI is not illegal, far from it. It serves ship computers, port docking stations, general software labour. What is illegal is the organic mimicking housing. For an AI to walk around as something other than an AI, and for people not to know, it's really a case of, I'm okay with these people as long as they're kept at arm's length. That as a reader, you're having your prejudices challenged when you're being shown other people's reactions from outside objectively, and you're going, wow, that's dumb. If you can't tell you're talking to an AI, who cares? There's a big aspect of control where AIs cannot alter their own code, cannot make changes to themselves. They can't lie, they can't walk around looking like us. People are okay with you, they're okay with you pretending you're a person as long as you're in a shiny metal box and they can control you. But as soon as the power is out of their hands, they're liable to try and stamp something out and make it illegal. There's a big theme of assumptions made about others. People assuming they know what AI would want as an independent species, that it will want to be an approximation of a human. Being a person the same as you is the end goal for something, which is a pretty pretentious way to treat anybody, really. AI would really be a totally new thing and would have to be added to the Galactic Commons as an entirely new species. Becky Chambers does this thing where she doesn't ever paint a concrete bad guy. Even though horrible things happen to Pepper during her childhood as Jane 23, Chambers really emphasises that what is happening to her is the bad thing, rather than taking an entire group of people and making them bad. It's more along the lines of, this thing is a bad thing to do, and it makes you understand that as a reader. It definitely is something that lends to her hopeful sci-fi feel. The closest thing you get to a bad guy in this book is automated robots or dogs living in a junkyard. All the while this is going on, you've got these two parallel storylines running. You've got Pepper working in a scrap salvage job, unaware that her life can be anything outside of following commands, who has the world opened up to her in a journey you would think, classically, would be the journey an AI would take to freedom. Whereas the journey Lovelace, who becomes Sidra, takes is one where she is removed from the world she feels comfortable in, thrown into a stimulus nightmare, and has her scope so narrowed into a centralized body that can't constantly uplink to the internet and get information. They're very different storylines, but they work very harmoniously together. They both involve a loss of purpose and how that affects both people differently. Asking, what do you do when you have no direction assigned to you by somebody else anymore? Both involved having been created by somebody else as a tool, having to fight physically or socially for your recognition as a person and integration into society. Similar journeys may have totally different endpoints for different individuals. What freedom means to you might mean something completely different to somebody else. What do you do with freedom once you get it? So I think the lesson of this book, the big Becky Chambers takeaway, is help people fight their fight. But don't for a second assume you know what's best for them, that you know what they want. Also, I guess, think about the space, the environment you're in. Try and sympathize and understand that other people around you are probably having a very different experience of it than you. So, yeah, I love this book. Pretty short review because I don't want to just unload the entire storyline and gush about it. I gave this book 5 stars, gave the first book 4 stars. I personally thought this was a really big improvement. I don't remember much about book 3, so I'm excited to get to that one. Excited for the 4th one, very. So thanks for tuning in for this review. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, which I'll link down below. Don't forget to follow our Interstellar Book Club, which I'll link down below, and Goodreads as well, which I'll link down below. More reviews coming thick and quick, read pretty fast. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see you soon. Bye!